In this movie, we will focus on the process of writing code to clear the text boxes of a form. Using our address label maker program and using the clear form button, I will want to write code that will allow the user to click and then delete or clear the contents of each of the text boxes. Now, to be able to do this, I need to remind myself of the names of these text boxes. So if I bring up the Properties window and click on the first name text box, I will see the name of the text box is first name text box. Last name is the last name text box. The street is the street text box. City is the city text box. State text box. And the zip code is the zip code text box. We need to reference each of these boxes in the code, so we need to know their names. So if I open up the clear form button by simply double clicking, and now I can close the properties window to give us a little more space on the screen. Below the comment that I've written for the reset form button, I will then begin to write the code. Now, if you have a difficult time remembering the name of your controls on the form, another way is by clicking the drop down arrow on the left pane of the form design code window, and that will provide a list of all the objects, including the controls, that are on the form currently. For example, you see the name, first name text box, last name text box, state text box, and so forth. So this is one way you can get a quick list of the items. So if I begin typing first name text box, if I press the dot key, I should get this IntelliSense window that will pop up. If that does not occur, for example, if I misspell first name text box and I press the dot, I do not get that IntelliSense window. So always be on the lookout for that little window to pop up, otherwise you know you have misspelled a control. Now, every control has a default property. In this case, the default property is text. But we don't want to select text at this point because there is a special method that has been designed in Visual Studio that will clear the contents of a text box. And that is simply the word clear. So as I begin typing the word clear, by simply typing the first two letters, CL, you can see in the list that clear has been chosen. So I could simply press the enter key and that completes the process. I don't need to type the rest of the word clear. I can allow IntelliSense to accept it. Now you'll notice that the word clear is has a set of parentheses after it, and this will be discussed later when we talk about functions and methods in more detail, but this is one indication that this is a method as opposed to a property. A property will not have the parentheses. For example, if we reference the name label.text here, the text property is written in this manner, where a method is written with parentheses after it. Those parentheses will have more significance later. So I need to do likewise for each of my text boxes. Last name text box dot clear, again simply accept it. So I will add each of the text boxes in a similar fashion. So now I have added each of the remaining text boxes with a clear method after it, and this should now allow me to run the program and test the clear form. So I first need to enter some sample data, obviously, to test this process. And now I'll click the Create Label, but I wouldn't have to, and I'll click Clear Form. And as you can see, the Clear Form has indeed cleared the entire form, that is the text boxes. Notice also, though, that the address label section of the form has not been cleared. If you want to do so, we'll discuss that shortly. To clear the contents of the labels, however, is a slightly different process than the text boxes. Returning to the form and then double clicking on the clear form button. If I drop down below the text box group, since this is a separate routine, I will create a line of a comment that says this clears the labels. Now, the names of the labels are name label, street label, and city state zip label. So using the name label as an example, I will type name label dot, and you'll notice that there is not a clear method associated with labels. Instead, what you must do is to clear the contents of the text boxes. This is one difference between the text box and a label. From a coding standpoint, a text box has a clear method where a label does not. To clear the contents of a label, you must actually delete the text property, delete the contents of the text property. Now notice when I am entering the quotation marks for the contents of the text box that I'm not placing a space in between the quotation marks. That is because I don't want to enter a space in the text property. I simply want to set it to a null value. And for text properties, which are character type data, a null value is indeed double quotes with nothing in between. So I'm just going to leave this as it is so that you'll see that the code will only do what you tell it to do, in that it will clear the name and the street label text boxes or labels, but it will not clear the remaining one. So let's run our program one more time. Create the label, and then click on the clear form, and you can see everything is indeed cleared except for the last label. And that is simply because I failed to clear that in the code itself.